For years, he had swum in different waters, but today, an uninvited companion changed everything for him. From a leisure swim, it became a swim to stay alive against nature's deadliest sea predator. Only one would make it out alive. Now let's go to where all this started, Little Bay Beach, Sydney. Sometimes there's nothing like swimming, relaxing, or having fun in a secluded beach, away from all the hustle and bustle of the city, away from work and stress. This is exactly the type of service that Little Bay Beach provides. A perfect destination for families to come and unwind. One of its greatest selling points is that it's serene, secluded, and mostly quiet. But as we go along in this story, you'd find that the same reason why the area is so loved is the same reason it's so dangerous. But let's not get ahead of ourselves just yet. A perfect destination for swimming and snorkeling, with golden sands for your kids to play with and explore their imagination with sand castles. But apart from all of these leisure activities, Little Bay Beach, Sydney is also a great fishing spot. And fishermen and amateurs alike sail far out into the ocean to catch some fish. But it's not only little fish that dwell in the ocean, is it? There also exist predators that lurk beneath the waters. Predators that have no regard for life. Vicious, dangerous, and terrifying, especially when you're on the wrong side of the water. And one of these apex predators is the great white shark. Mostly found in the waters of major oceans, these creatures could be as long as 19 feet and weigh around 2,000 kilograms. In 2014, a study on the species uncovered that they could live to be 70 years old, and they can smell blood or even sense their prey from up to 5 kilometers away. But that's not the most terrifying thing about them. One of the scariest things about this animal is the way it senses its prey from miles away. You see, sharks don't rely on their sight as much as they rely on their other senses. So when a small prey swims around, it creates ripples and vibrations through the ocean that the shark can then sense. The predator follows this vibration until it finds itself around the prey, and then it strikes. Its powerful teeth are outrageously dangerous. There are 300 triangular teeth in a shark's mouth, capable of destroying a small boat and tearing flesh from a prey, even a human. As a matter of fact, there have been more than a dozen shark attacks recorded in areas where people fish a lot. These reports have held that these sharks bite the boats and intentionally cause them to sink. Or sometimes they'd bump into smaller boats with the intention to knock humans overboard so they can eat them up, literally. Their gray bodies do not help because they blend almost perfectly with the water, so their prey and victims do not see them coming. And if 35-year-old Simon Nellist had seen it coming, perhaps this story would have taken an entirely different turn. Wednesday, 16th of February, 2022. The Little Bay Beach, Sydney. British expat Simon Nellist had come to Sydney for a charity ocean swimming competition. Simon was a very skilled swimmer, but he didn't just have the skills, he also had the passion and willingness to be one of the best at it. But even more importantly, Simon had a big heart and loved to help people. It's the reason he was even in Sydney in the first place, for a charity swim competition. And the reason he was in Little Bay Beach was to practice for the event coming up soon. Everything else seemed to be going well in his life. He was doing what he loved and also was recently engaged. Little did he know that he was about to encounter something that would change the life of everyone he loves forever. It was about 4:30 p.m. when he took a dive into the ocean. The waves and the breeze were familiar terrain for him. He had done this 100 times before. He wasn't scared. He wasn't too curious. He was a professional. Nothing to be worried about. So not only did Simon dive into the ocean, he swam further out into the sea. Even though he had done this before, this time it turned out to be the worst decision of his life. Once there, he paused and took in the serenity. Hearing the waves clash, feeling the water against his skin, dancing and swimming to stay afloat, it was bliss. Despite how beautiful and serene it was, there was real danger here. But thankfully, there were professional lifeguards who patrolled and watched the area to make sure everyone was safe. Sadly, this was another irony. There were some people fishing a few miles away from where Simon was, and back at the shore, he could see dozens of people playing and relaxing. He was all alone here, he thought. He swam and swam against the current and waves so he could build endurance. But unknown to him, he was creating such a splatter and ripple effect, a beast nearby sensed it and began to swim towards him. Simon kept training, unaware of the imminent danger he was in. A great white shark had sensed his location and was headed towards him. As Simon kept on, he sensed something wasn't right, but he didn't think much of it. Suddenly, he felt something in the water, something strange, with an almost hard surface. That's odd, he thought to himself. He was in the water. There couldn't possibly be anything hard around here. But before he could think again, he felt it a second time. This time, he knew for sure what he felt and that it was moving. His years of training and experience shifted into high gear. Something hard and moving in the ocean was not a good sign. But just as he was about to start swimming away as fast as he could, he felt some resistance. It was at this moment that he felt undeniable fear for his life. It was a great white shark, and he barely stood any chance. But Simon would not give up. He kept trying to swim away, but the shark held him back. It gets even worse. The shark positioned itself in the deadliest of ways so that Simon couldn't even see the beast attacking him. From a vertical position, it opened its mouth wide and its sharp teeth dug into Simon's skin, chomping on his legs, biting and slashing with the intent to kill. Simon cried out in pain for help as he continued to splatter around the water, trying to get away, trying to call for help. Meanwhile, on the other end of the ocean, some people on the shore noted a lot of splashing from far out in the ocean, and they wondered if Simon was drowning. No one knew for sure what was going on, so they watched to assess the situation. But back in the water, Simon was fighting for his life. The shark bit into his knees and kept biting for what seemed like an eternity. Like a fountain from his body, blood began to seep out. Little by little, the water around him began to turn bright red, and by now, the shark was more vicious than ever. Attracted to the blood, it continued its vicious attack. The worst part was he couldn't fight the shark off even if he wanted to. The attack was vertical, and the only way to fight the shark was to drown himself. He was helpless, he was tired, and he was losing a lot of blood. Soon enough, he could feel the shark biting into his vital organs, chewing and chomping on him like a piece of meat. He could feel the life leaving his body. His call for help began to quieten, and little by little, he began to give way and surrender to the dark abyss. He was too far from others to be helped, too weak to fight back, and so he let go. The shark pulled him into the water, and he disappeared from sight. Those that watched from the shores were horrified. They had just witnessed a terrible attack. It was a terrible fate, an incident that changed the trajectory of the lives of those who loved him. The first attack in those waters in over 60 years. His remains were found in the water afterwards, bitten and eaten beyond recognition. Sadly, there was no saving him. Simon Nellist was gone forever. If this video gave you chills, you won't believe what happens in this next one. Click here to check it out.